All right, let's talk about building bigger, rounder shoulders. If you feel like you've been spinning your wheels, trying everything but not getting the results you want, you're in the right place. Today, we're cutting through all the bro science to build the ultimate blueprint for deltoid growth, and it's all backed by real exercise science. Let's dive in. So first things first, let's start with a question that gets right to the heart of training smarter. When you're doing something like an overhead press, how does your brain actually decide how much work your deltoid does versus, say, your pecs or your triceps? You might be surprised because the answer is probably not what you think it is. Now, you've probably heard this idea before, that your brain just picks the muscle where it's at its strongest point. And, it kind of makes sense on the surface, but it's actually a huge misunderstanding of how our bodies are wired to move. The real answer is so much cooler and way more efficient. So if it's not about just picking the strongest muscle, then what is it? Well, it turns out your brain is a master engineer, and it all boils down to one simple, powerful concept: leverage. This whole idea has a name. It's called neuromechanical matching, or NMM for short. And put simply, your central nervous system doesn't really care which muscle feels the strongest. It's like a ruthless efficiency expert. It's always going to send the signal to the muscle that has the best leverage, the best mechanical advantage to actually get the job done. So here's the absolute crucial takeaway, the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. To really truly target a specific muscle, you have to engineer the exercise to put that muscle in a position where it has the best possible leverage. It's that simple. Okay, so we've got the leverage principle down, but there's another piece to this puzzle we need to understand. See, muscle growth isn't just a one-size-fits-all thing. There are actually two different ways a muscle fiber can get bigger, and they're triggered by different things. So on one hand, you've got myofibrillar hypertrophy. This is what most of us think of when we think muscle growth. You're adding more contractile proteins side by side, making the muscle fiber literally thicker. This is mainly driven by that active tension from a hard muscle contraction. But then there's this other super interesting process called sarcomerogenesis. This is where you add sarcomeres end to end, making the muscle fiber longer. And this is primarily stimulated by passive tension. In other words, from stretch. And that brings us to this awesome concept called stretch-mediated hypertrophy. This is the magic that happens when you train a muscle in its fully stretched position. You get the best of both worlds: active tension from trying to lift the weight, and passive tension from the stretch itself. It's a killer combination for growth. But, and this is a big but, not every muscle can actually take advantage of this. All right. Enough theory, let's get our hands dirty. It's time to apply these two massive concepts, leverage and the two types of growth, to our target, the deltoid. First, you gotta know that your deltoid isn't just one big slab of muscle. It's actually made up of three distinct, functionally different heads. You've got the anterior, or front head, the middle, or lateral head, which is what gives you that awesome shoulder width, and the posterior, or rear head. If you want those truly 3D cannonball delts, you have got to train all three, and you have to train them smartly. Okay, this table right here, this is your golden ticket. This is the whole blueprint in a nutshell. You can see each head has a totally different sweet spot for leverage. The front delt loves it when your arm is up high. The middle delt, its best leverage is actually below shoulder height, and the rear delt has its best pull when your arm is lower. Now, look all the way to the right. See that big no under stretch-mediated hypertrophy for the rear delt? That is a super important detail. We're going to come back to that. So how do we take this cheat sheet and turn it into an actual effective workout? Let's break it down head by head and look at the exact exercises that put each muscle in its prime position for growth. First up, the front delt. Now look, this muscle gets a lot of work already from all your bench pressing and push-ups, so it can be easy to overdo it, but we can still hit it with way more precision. Remember from our cheat sheet, the front delt's leverage just gets better and better the higher your arm goes. That's exactly why overhead presses are fantastic. The hardest part of the lift is right near the top, exactly where the front delt has the best advantage to take over. And here's a weird one you might not expect: dumbbell chest flies. Why? Because when you're in that deep, stretched position, the front delt is in a massively leveraged position to help pull those arms back together. All right, next up is the one everybody wants to build for, that wide, capped shoulder look, the middle or lateral deltoid. And training this one correctly is all about precision. Okay, listen up, because this is so important. The middle delt has its best leverage below shoulder height. This means the most effective lateral raises stop right around parallel to the floor. If you start swinging the weight way up past your shoulder, you're not hitting the middle delt more. You're just letting the front delt, which has better leverage up there, take over the movement. You're wasting your effort. And finally, let's talk about the unsung hero of the shoulder, the often forgotten but absolutely critical posterior deltoid. Seriously, a well-developed rear delt is key not just for a balanced look, but for overall shoulder health. The rear delt's job is to pull your arms back, so its best leverage is in horizontal extension. This makes exercises like a reverse pec deck or face pulls absolutely perfect. But remember our cheat sheet, the rear delt does not benefit from stretch-mediated hypertrophy. This means going for some crazy, deep, uncomfortable stretch isn't the goal here. What's way more important is maintaining high tension in that sweet spot where its leverage is at its peak. Okay, so we've picked the perfect exercises, we know the right form to maximize leverage, but that's only half the battle. How much should you actually be doing, and how often? Let's talk programming. Let's start with the absolute baseline. What's the bare minimum you need to do to even see any growth at all? Well, the research points to a number, about 4 hard sets per muscle group per week. That's your entry ticket. Anything less than that, and you're pretty much just maintaining what you've got. But, and this is a huge but, more is not always better. In fact, it's usually not. This chart shows it perfectly. It's the law of diminishing returns. That first bar, somewhere between 5 and 10 hard sets a week, that is your high efficiency zone. It's where you get the most bang for your buck, the most growth for your effort. Can you get more growth by pushing into those higher numbers? Yeah, a little, but the cost to your recovery goes way, way up. It's all about training smarter, not just harder. And here's where we get into the really next level stuff. Did you know that not all parts of the same muscle recover at the same rate? It's true. For the deltoid, the middle head is actually the most fragile. Because of its structure, it's the most susceptible to muscle damage, and it recovers the slowest. The rear delt, on the other hand, is a workhorse. It's more resilient and recovers way faster. So what does this all mean? What's the big game-changing takeaway? It means you can, and probably should, break the old rule of hitting every muscle part with the same frequency. You can train your tough, resilient rear delts more often than your easily damaged middle delts. Think about it. You could smash your middle delts once a week, but hit your rear delts with a bit of work 2, maybe even 3 times a week. That is how you intelligently accelerate growth without burning yourself out. And there you have it, the scientific blueprint. It's not about some secret exercise or magic supplement. It's about understanding how your body actually works, understanding leverage, knowing the different ways muscles can grow, and being smart about your recovery. You now have the framework to analyze any exercise for any muscle. So the only question left is, which muscle are you going to build a blueprint for next?